our channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 12th of August of 2026. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first let's talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, and we will start with the Odessa region. During the previous days, the Russians intensified their attacks on the Odessa's logistics. The Russians destroyed or badly damaged the bridge along N33 road. We are talking about the Zatoka bridge, and these days the Russians attacked several times bridges along the river of Dniester in the area of the city of Mayaki. And as for these attacks, the situation led to big traffic jams in the direction of the city of Mayaki, and here we can see the traffic jam itself. Jams, we see lots of vehicles waiting for their turn to cross the river of Dniester. And when the Russians realized that lots of vehicles stuck along the M15 road, including fuel trucks and so on, the Russians began attacking this territory with drones. In this video we can see the Russians attacked a cargo vehicle in the area of the bridge across the Dniester river in the area of Mayaki. Most likely the Russians will continue this process. They will try to destroy as many as possible cargo vehicles and fuel trucks in this area with the purpose to destroy the logistics and supply and support to Ukraine through the Odessa region. Now let's move further and let's talk about the situation in the area of the city of Zaporozhye, more precisely in the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, as you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly, and we're talking about the situation between the cities of Orekhov and Mala-Takhmachka. Today, several very reliable pro-Russian sources reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians established complete control over the pocket between Mala-Takhmachka and Orekhov. We're talking about these territories. Once again, these are the changes on the ground. As of now, we haven't received video proofs to confirm this, but we believe that in coming days we will receive. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing the city of Orekhov itself, softening defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine. Currently, the clashes are very heavy for the city of Orekhov, and the Russians are preparing themselves to take under complete control the city before the Russia's parliament elections begin. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, massive attack was recorded through the city of Zaporozhye, and the sources reported that the Russians attacked this mall, this warehouse, as you can see, a very big facility that, according to the Russia's intelligence, the Ukrainians were using for the logistic purposes. So this city mall was destroyed, reduced to ruins, and here we can see the video published by local sources. Here we can see that the facility was completely wiped out, reduced to ruins. Furthermore, we have lots of videos on the SMATSA, and this video shows the situation on the morning of the 12th of August of 2026. We see that the fire crews continued extinguishing the fire, but most likely the fire crews haven't managed to stabilize the situation and to save the facility. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation through the Dershkovka-Slavinsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, lots of very important updates were reported. According to information we have, the Russians finished the battle for another village along the river by the name of Казённый Торец. So this is the river, and during the previous weeks, the Russians captured the villages like Pavlovka, Приют, Tarskoye, Krasny Kut, Toretskoye, and today several pro-Russian sources, more precisely very reliable pro-Russian sources, reported that the village of Petrivka was also captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And telling the truth, right before we started making this video, pro-Russian sources published a video of clashes for the settlement of Petrivka with Russian flags. So we have proofs, we have videos, we just haven't managed to adjust the map before we started making this video. So we will adjust the map tomorrow, and tomorrow we will see the situation. So the village was taken by Russians, which means that the Russians answered the Drushkovka agglomeration from the southwest, because the village of Raiska, which is the next village after the settlement of Petrivka, is already the beginning of the southwestern agglomeration of the city of Drushkovka. So Russians, when they answer the settlement of Raiska, this is going to be a huge media victory for Russians, because this is going to be once again the beginning of the battle for the agglomeration itself. Furthermore, the Russians during the previous 24 hours improved their positions to the east of the city of Kramatorsk, and these changes were published by different pro-Russian and sources and neutral mappers. And according to these updates, the Russians managed to take on the complete control of this dense network of the fortifications. And the most important is that the Russians, with this progress on the ground, managed to outflank and to semi-encircle the settlement of Orikhovatka from the southwest and from the west. So as you can see, the village of Orikhovatka is right now encircled by Russians, at least from two directions. The settlement of Orikhovatka is a very important village because, as you can see, this is one of the villages where the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass canal goes below the surface. So, for example, here we have canal goes above the surface, and here we can see that canal goes through facilities below the surface, which means that the Russians don't need special or additional equipment to cross this territory, which means that if Russians take on the complete control of the settlement of Orikhovatka, this will improve the Russia's logistics and capabilities to introduce additional forces on the Ukraine side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass canal. The front line through the Kramatorsk direction, as we can see, continue crumbling. Furthermore, the Russians continue attacking the city of Kramatorsk with aviation as well as the city of Drushkovka. The Russians are reducing the city to ruins, trying to soften defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine through the settlement before the beginning of a major battle for the territory itself. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation through the northern directions. These days, the group of forces north shows the biggest progress on the ground. During the previous 14 days, the group of forces north have developed their positions significantly. So let's discuss everything in details. And first, let's talk about the Veliki Burluk direction, because the Russians finished the battle for the settlement of Bely Kolodys. This direction used to be the Bely Kolodys direction, but now we can say that this is already the Veliki Burluk direction. As you can see, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians have improved their position significantly, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 10th of August, this is the end of the 11th of August, and this is already the end of the 12th of August of 2026. Right now, we see that the Russians are attacking at least through 4 directions. This is the first direction. The Russians are trying to improve their positions from the area of the settlement of Bely Kolodys in the southeastern direction with the purpose to attack the settlement of Veliki Burluk from the northwest. So this is the first route of attack. This is the first direction of Russia's attack. The second direction is along this belt of villages between the settlements of Vasilievka, Blagodatna, Nefedovka, and Chorny. The Russians are trying to take this belt of villages under complete control and to cut the armed forces of Ukraine through the most northeastern parts of the Kharkiv region in Koldrun. So these are the two first waves of attacks that the Russians are trying to develop from the area of the settlement of Bely Kolodys. At the same time, through the northeastern parts of the Veliki Burluk direction, the Russians are trying to do the same. The Russians are trying to advance in the southwestern direction using these roads of attacks with the purpose to attack the settlement of Veliki Burluk from the northeast. As you can see, the Russians are trying to tighten the noose around the settlement of Prikolotna and to encircle this territory, and the Russians are trying to develop their offensive operation through the same belt of offensives. So this is the situation, and this is a very interesting situation because using this configuration, using these attacks and these roads, obviously we see that most likely in coming days the Russians may try to begin another offensive operation, and this time from the southeastern parts of the Veliki Burluk direction with the purpose to outflank and to attack the settlement of Veliki Burluk from behind and to encircle this area. When talking about the northeastern parts of the Kharkiv region, telling the truth, I don't see And I have no doubts that the Russians would continue their offensive operation, that the Russians would move very fast through this area, and most likely within the next 2 or 3 months, and obviously before the end of 2026, we'll see a very big or major regrouping of the armed forces of Ukraine, and the Ukrainians will try to stabilize the situation between the Pechenegi water reservoir, the settlement of Shevchenkova, and the settlements of Balakleya Savinci. So this is going to be the next and probably the final defense layer of the city of Kharkiv itself through the eastern and the southeastern directions. The situation in the northeastern parts and eastern parts of Kharkiv area is a very difficult one for the armed forces of Ukraine. Now let's talk about the city of Kharkiv itself. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians attacked the settlement with drones, and as a result of attack, a substation, energy substation, was destroyed. Furthermore, a gas station between the settlements of Lazov and Kharkiv was also destroyed as a result of attack. In this video, we can see the consequences of that attack. The Russians used drones, and as you can see, the gas station was completely wiped out. As for the northern Kharkiv direction, currently there are very heavy clashes. The Russians tried to finish the battle for the settlement of Kazachye Lopань, but now we see and we understand that most likely the Ukrainians managed to dig in deeper through the western parts of the settlement. We're talking about the part of the settlement which is located to the west of the river of Lopань. The Ukrainians managed to dig in deeper, and the Ukrainians managed to save control over this part of the settlement. But the Russians decided not to continue offensive operation in the western direction because the Russians realized the losses they may suffer during these offensives. The Russians decided to continue offensive operation further in the direction of the settlement of Novokazachye and in the direction of the settlement of Tsupivka from the east and from the northeast. So which means that the Russians decided to postpone the Zolochiv offensive operation for some days or weeks before they finish the battle for this foothold to the north of the city of Kharkiv. As for the settlement of Zolochiv, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed a temporary deployment point. We're talking about this building. This building was destroyed, and most likely the Ukrainians were using this building as a temporary deployment point with the purpose then to send reinforcements and reserves in the direction of Kazachye Lopань itself. So there are very heavy clashes, and the Russians continue advancing. As for the Sumy direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded. First of all, another gas station was destroyed to the southwest of the city of Sumy, and the Russians improved their position significantly around the settlement of Magritsa, and these are the changes on the ground. This is the end of the 11th of August, and this is already the end of the 12th of August of 2026. As we can see, according to these changes, the Russians continued tightening the news around the settlement of Sadki from the south. We believe that in coming days, the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine through this territory would be caught in cauldron, or the Ukrainians would make this difficult decision and retreats in the southwestern direction towards this big Sumy forest. So the situation is quite complicated in this area, because if Ukrainians lose control over the settlement of Sadki, the Russians would be able to maintain the lines through the entire Sumy direction, and then the Russians, using broad frontline attack, would continue their offensive operation towards the city of Sumy itself. So basically, with the end of the battle for this angle, for this pocket, for this corner, we can say that the battle for the city of Sumy starts. So this is the situation with the changes on the ground. Now let's talk about massive attacks. During the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians attacked the city of Novorossiysk. More precisely, the Ukrainians launched hundreds of drones deep inside of the territory of Russia and deep inside of the southern regions of Russia. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation this morning reported that the Russians intercepted 502 drones just during the overnight battle. Furthermore, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that during the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed around 1,000 of drones of the armed forces of Ukraine. And most of these drones were trying to hit and to destroy or to damage facilities, objects of critical infrastructure through the settlement of Novorossiysk. And this morning, fresh satellite pictures were published where we can see lots of fire anomalies through the city of Novorossiysk. And as we discussed during the previous video, due to the fact that we haven't received anything on the matter of critical damage that the Ukrainians managed to deal, we came to the conclusion that most likely the Russians managed to repel this attack. And these fire anomalies are just the consequences of drones that fell on the city due to the Russia's air defense forces work. Furthermore, we have lots of videos on the matter of the Russia's air defense. For example, in this video, we can see how exactly the Russians were repelling this overnight attack. As you can see, the Russians concentrated significant number of air defense systems, mobile fire groups, different equipment that's allowed the Russians to recognize and to see the drones through the night. And that was a very heavy battle, and that was one of the longest battles since the beginning of the special military operation. We're talking about air battle. Later, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see how exactly the Ukrainians were attacking the city of Novorossiysk. As you can see, the Ukrainians were attacking the settlement at least from 4 directions, 3 directions from the west, 1 direction from the north, and one of the direction started it road from the north and outflanked the settlement of Novorossiysk from the east and basically attacked the city from behind. We're talking about these drones. So most likely the Ukrainians were trying to maneuver, were trying to outsmart the Russians. The Russians used a lot of air defense forces, and of course that was a very important question during the day, whether the Ukrainians managed to deal the damage or not. And this evening, pro-Ukrainian sources published this picture where we can see the consequences of attack. So in this short video, we can see a facility that was hit by a drone and just a roof was damaged, so nothing special. So in this video, we can see some facility that was also damaged and probably was partially destroyed, at least at this point, but not a critical damage. In this video, we can see a vessel that was damaged, and we can see a black point on the top of this vessel, which means that the vessel was damaged. As for this military ship, lots of explosions and black let's say black things were recorded around the ship itself, but not on the ship. In this video, we can see that the bridge and this facility was damaged, but not the ship. So as you can see, and as I told you during the previous video and during this video, the Ukrainians used more than, let's say, around up to 1,000 of drones during the previous 24 hours, but it seems that the Russians managed to repel this attack and to reduce the damage to minimal level. So this is a very important situation. At the same time, right after the Ukrainians finished this attack, the Russians began attacking the territory of Ukraine with jet-powered drones. And during the day, we received lots of, more precisely during the morning, we received lots of pictures where we can see the approximate positions of drones between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Of the 12th of August of 2026. The Russians used hundreds of drones to attack the territory of Ukraine. For example, this is the first map that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources somewhere around at 12 p.m. where we can see that jet-powered drones of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were launched at least from 3 directions, so from the Bryansk region, from the Donetsk airfield, and from the southern parts of Kherson region. And these drones were attacking the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev. Later, the Russians launched more drones, and a few hours later, we received a more detailed map of the morning attack. The Russians used not just jet-powered drones, but regular drones as well. And according to information we have, the Russians were attacking the eastern parts of the city of Kiev, of the Kiev agglomeration, more precisely the settlement of Brovary and these warehouses. So, and for example, this is one of the first pictures that was published this morning, and here we have a very heavy explosion over this part of the city. The sources reported that the Russians attacked this facility because we have a fire anomaly from this area, and people came to conclusion that most likely this facility was attacked. But I believe that this facility wasn't attacked by the Russians, because this facility was attacked on the night of the 5th of August of 2026. And for example, these are the changes between 5th and 4th of August of 2026. And as you can see, according to these changes, this facility was badly damaged and basically wiped out by Russians. So let's take a look at changes once again. You will see how exactly the situation with this facility changed between the dates. So this is probably the video. Yes, this is the video. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 7th of August, by the end of the 4th of August, and this is the situation by the end of the 6th of August. So as you can see, the facility was completely destroyed, which means that most likely this morning the Russians were attacking this facility, another warehouse too on top of this one. So the Russians, it seems, decided to destroy this block completely. We're talking about all these warehouses. As you can see, there are many of them. So once again, these are the changes between the dates. So as you can see, there are lots of warehouses. There are lots of warehouses with trucks. So most likely in coming days, we'll see more strike through this area, and the Russians will try to destroy every single facility through the northwestern parts of the Kyiv agglomeration. So this is the situation with the Russian attack with powered jet drones that took place this morning, and this was something like retaliation strike because the Ukrainians attacked the city of Novorossiysk. Another important thing is the statements that were made by the president of Russia. And the Russians, the president of Russia, said that Russia will respond in a mirror manner to any attempts to seize its merchant ships. The Russian leader stated this during a meeting with the commander of the Pacific Fleet. According to the president, the authorities of some countries, in violation of international law, are trying to restrict the movement of Russian ships and have recently though of the possibility of seizing Russia's ships and selling the property stolen from Russia. So this is the statement of Putin, and he most likely was talking about the United States of America. If you remember, several days ago there was a report that the United States of America sold Russian ships to India or something like this that allegedly belonged to the Shadow Fleet. So most likely in coming days we might see escalation. And it seems that this escalation is going to take place not through the Baltic Sea or Mediterranean Sea. According to the meeting and according to all these things, most likely we might see escalation through the North Pacific Ocean, through this territory, and most likely the Russians will start doing something. This is going to be a very interesting situation because obviously the Russians can feel themselves much more safer through this territory in comparison with the North Atlantic Ocean, North Sea, and so on. The Russians more protected through this territory rather than through these territories. So most likely, if something happens with the Russian fleet, most likely we'll see retaliation from the Russian side, and this is going to be another escalation. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my page.